going over the mysteries of King Arthur. Drawing the sword from the stone. So we know that there's a lot of different interpretations of this legend, and there's many questions to whether or not King Arthur was a real person. Was he just a myth? There's a lot of question and debate whether he existed or not. There have been things added to the story, taken from the story, and it seems to confuse a lot of people. The truth of the matter is King Arthur is real because Arthur represents the soul or the sun. We know in the story of King Arthur, he's the one who guides the knights on the quest for the Holy Grail, that he was the one that was able to pull the sword from the stone, that he was guided by the wizard Merlin, as well as conquering evil and having 12 knights and a round table to accommodate him in his trials. The truth comes out when we see this as an allegorical story or an initiatory story. You know that Arthur represents the sun. Merlin represents the higher mind who guides Arthur, or the human soul. So we always have this dualistic aspect like Krishna and Arjuna, or Jesus and Jehovah, Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket. You have Arthur and Merlin. And of course, the round table is the Zodiac. Because just in the same way that King Arthur must become a king, we also must become priests and kings. Now, Merlin represents the priest, which is the philosophical mind, the ability to see the truth through intuition. And the king is to be able to handle material matter affairs with intelligence and to be able to understand the workings of the human body. So when you become a king of the elements, the material nature. When you become a priest, you become a seer of spiritual prophecy. And Arthur represents the king. Merlin represents the priest. And when we raise the chrism to the crown chakra, we become crowned. In the same way King Arthur was crowned and became king because he was worthy. Now let's dive into the esoteric symbolism. Eliphas Levi, a Western transcendental white magic magician, has a quote that says, "Laughter is forbearance. Laughter is philosophy. The heavens clear when they laugh, and the great secret of divine omnipotence resides in the internal smile." Now, the only reason why King Arthur was able to pull the sword from the stone was because of his childlike spirit. The childlike spirit which allows us to live in truth and in spirit here in the physical realm. Our best ability of magic is laughter, and to bring the inner smile, or the great eternal smile, which we taught about in our previous lectures of the Mona Lisa smile, opens the gate within the spinal column for the energies to flow. So I really love this quote by Eliphas Levi because it shows that the childlike nature of the spirit conquers adversity. And as you see, the pentagram represents spirit overcoming matter. The top pentacle of the pentagram is spirit. The lower four are the elements, because the magician learns how to conquer his lower nature and the four elements. We will be doing a separate lecture on the mysteries of the pentagram. Another quote by Eliphas Levi. "We have said that there is no religion without mysteries. Let us add that there are no mysteries without symbols. The symbol, being the formula or the expression of the mystery, only expresses its unknown depth by paradoxical images borrowed from the known. The symbolic form, having for its object to characterize what is above scientific reason, should necessarily find itself without that reason. Hence the celebrated and perfectly just remark of the Father of the Church. He quotes, "I believe because it is absurd." This is exactly what I mean by the story of King Arthur. Did King Arthur exist? Do we worry about the things that were changed in the story? Or do we just look for the symbols and the key elements of what the story is trying to tell us? These stories are come from the mind of God. They manifest. They come down from the higher realms and manifest in our minds and are expressed through our hands as we write. These stories are symbols and reflections of the inner working of the soul. And we're going to use the mysteries of King Arthur to help us practice understanding initiatory allegories. So I recommend that either before or after this lecture, that you all take time to read and study the mythology of King Arthur using the mystic keys that will be given to you in this lecture. So, of course, the knights in the round table, the 12 Zodiac. We master the 12 intelligences. The round table is the sine wave. The solar hero is our very own soul. We can see that the round table and the 12 represent the 12 cranial nerves and the 12 intelligences in man that are given power and birth by the Christ or the 13th or the Master, which is the inner witness or Krishna, who commands the 12. The 12 qualities of the soul flourish in the heart chakra when we overcome our lower nature. The 12 are intimately related to the 12 faculties in the human mind. The 12 apostles are here in us now as living realities. They carry out autonomously in order to bring about the desired result of the inner master. 13 is the product of 12, or the teacher of the 12 disciples, for there would be no teacher if there are none to teach. The 13th cranial nerve is activated within our brain once these 12 inner powers within ourself are activated. We activate them by living our drama of the sun within our being, aka King Arthur, the drama of King Arthur. The whole drama of the Son of God, incarnating into flesh and being crucified, has to vividly take place within our own being here and now. Of course, the Master Jesus says, to become as little children to inherit the kingdom of heaven, we must redeem our minds, our imaginations, our intentions, and make them calm, simple, and supple to be able to perceive the higher realities, to be able to pull the sword out of the stone like King Arthur did. King Arthur was only able to pull the sword out of the stone because his youthful, charismatic, Christic energy. Notice the correlation of the word charismatic, chrism, Christic nature. God is a spirit and communicates to man as spirit does through symbols and inspiration. So we can draw inspiration from this initiatory story and understand that it is your story. Now, of course, just like Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio or Arjuna and Krishna, we have Merlin, the wise sage that helps guide and train Merlin on his journey. Because Merlin represents the higher guiding force that directs the soul in his journey. And we see and interact with our own personal Merlin through synchronicities. Sometimes this inner Merlin appears as an outer physical guru or mentor, but it's very important to note that the outer manifestation is only an inner reflection of the inner guru, which is the I am. Merlin, or our internal intuition, will help us become wizards. Wizards are Western yogis. A wizard is a Western term for someone who has control over the elements of nature, who is able to produce effects in the outer reality through priestly conjuration, by being a priest, by activating the cerebrum, by raising the chakra energy to the brain and releasing the chrism. This is how we master the four elements with the power of ether or the spirit. We know that the magician represents the being, the cup or the chalice, the holy grail, water, the pentacle, earth, the wand, fire, and the sword, air or intelligence. The holy grail is what was sought by King Arthur. The holy grail is none other but the yoni, or the female reproductive system. The wizard must find his chalice and unite sexually and withdraw without spilling. This is how we conquer the four elements and become wizards. The sword and the stone. The sword is none other than the spinal column. The rock is the bottom chakra or the sacral. We can either pull the sword out of the stone and become kings, or as you can see, the bottom of the sacral and the spine looks like a shovel. We can dig our own grave by indulging in the animalistic, selfish nature of the being. And Arthur is the Sun King, whom only as a child, was able to pull the sword. In the same way, Jesus was 12 years old in the temple preaching to the teachers, teaching them knowledge from the higher realms, symbolizing the childlike spirit that disintegrates the ego. I'm not sure if there's any Legend of Zelda fans out there, but Link is a hero in the Legend of Zelda who pulls the Master Sword from the Temple of Time and is sealed away for 7 years to become old enough to conquer Ganondorf, the evil entity that represents time, Saturn, or the material nature. Very interesting story. I grew up more with that and took interest in other allegories growing up. I seek a lot of inspiration from these stories because stories come from the divine realms of ideals and manifest in our minds. As Walter Russell says, there's only one mind. Well, what do wizards use? They use the magic wand. Why don't we see what Thomas H. Burgoyne has to say about the magic wand? The philosophy of the magic wand is this: it is a magnetic electric conductor for the magician's will. It directs the flow of his thought and concentrates it upon a given point in space or an object. It is magically what the sights of a rifle are to a sportsman. It enables him to focus his powers with exact precision upon the mark against which or upon which his will is directed. Apart from this, there is no power per se in the wand itself any more than there is in a lightning conductor without the electric storm. Ergo, the wand is the conductor of the magician's hand for the lightnings of the soul. And just as the lightning rod is most useful and most powerful to protect when the storm is the strongest, so is the wand most powerful in the hands of the most potential magician. We can only transmute through the wand the degree of force we may happen to possess in the soul. The wand is a very important tool from the Western magician standpoint. We can use the wand to activate our chakras. We can use the wand for banishing rituals of the pentagram. We can use the wand to direct our will in the 4 directions or the 4 cardinal points. We can bring down energy from Kether all the way down to Malkuth and purify our bodies. We'll be learning about how we can use the magic wand to help initiate change and direct the will. But right now, I'm just trying to get us established in the Western tradition so that we can have the proper understanding of what these things are for, so that when we learn how to use them, it'll be very simple. So we know that the childlike spirit, the Christ, is born, and the soul conquers circumstances by being entombed in illusion. Arthur is the only one to pull the sword because of his childlike spirit. King Arthur, when we pull our sword from Malkuth or the bottom chakra, is when we finally understand how to turn lust into chastity, to become loving, to allow all the sexual energy to be vaporized and seminized into the heart. The sexual energy must come from the bottom cauldron and to be mixed in the fires of the heart, finally make its ascent into the kingdom where the brain is. It has to go through these transformations, but if we're trapped in the lower chakras, the energy won't rise. The sexual energy must mix with the Christic energy of the heart and then be purified in the brain. Not everyone can pull the sword because the sword represents willpower, and willpower, the amount, Eliphas Levi has this beautiful quote, and I'm going to have to quote it in my mind because I couldn't find it. I have to get the book. It's Eliphas Levi Transcendental, or Eliphas Levi High Magic. And he says, the Magi's power rests in transmuted desire. However much desire you have to have desire. But that desire must be transmuted and held back and retained and transmuted upward to higher ideals, higher emotions. And this can be done through classical music, through pranayama, or by inflaming yourself in prayer daily, prayer and meditation, to invoke the highest energies of the seven, and to inflame yourself in prayer will allow yourself to go through an alchemical change to where you'll recognize your true being and be able to conquer the animal nature. We can use the willpower to overcome the animal impulses. You gain willpower when you're doing mantra vocalizations, when you're doing ceremonial magic, when you're doing yoga, fitness, or physical activity. You're increasing your willpower, and you're depleting your willpower when you choose to yield to the animal nature. Someone who's gone through the process of an alchemical transformation has incarnated all of his or her soul powers and acts and reacts in the world very differently inside than someone who has not. They may appear on the outside to act similar or be like the other, but inside they are very different. The one who has achieved his or her being always sees things from a higher perspective, is balanced in thinking, and lives between the pillars of judgment and mercy perfectly. A long time ago, man used to be in tune with nature and invoking the seven planets or the seven archangels, and to be in touch with the sun cycles. We can realign this connection through ceremonial magic or by chanting the seven planets or by vocalizing mantras in each chakra. We can do a prayer to say, Gabriel, please bless us with the waters of life and fertility and the ability to be born again within. Thank you, Michael. Bless us with willpower, fire, and strength, and the power of the universe. Bless us, Uriel, with harvest, foundation, and to be strong and laborious. We can invoke these by understanding what they symbolize and uttering a prayer from the heart to invoke these energies and bring them down. We can direct them with the wand or our will so that we can actually have transformation within ourselves. This will be a shorter lecture, and I want it to help us to understand the beautiful allegories of the basic characters like Merlin, King Arthur, the Holy Grail, the Round Table, and the sword, because these symbols are prominent in all of the mythologies. And we can use it to overcome and understand our purpose in life. And thank you so much for coming to the Syncretism Academy.